Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I've been doing a series of webinars during the pandemic to entertain myself, talk with old friends, and meet new friends. And somebody else just is trying to join the webinar, so let me solve that. Just for those of you that are tuning in and may not have heard, Surefoot is having its 5-year anniversary special. We're running 5 weeks of contests where you get a free pair of Surefoot pads if you win. We're going to have a grand prize drawing on week 6, Nashon, which is a full set of pads if you enter all 5 weeks. So that's over $1,000 value. Yeah. So all you have to do is go to Facebook and make sure that you enter all 5 contests. Even if the week is passed, just go back, put in a comment and a photo or whatever it is for that week. And we're keeping track to make sure, you know, we know that you've entered all 5, and we'll check it all out before the beginning of week 6 when we draw that prize at the end. So just go to Facebook, Surefoot Equine page, or Fans of Surefoot to find out more details. And yeah, maybe you'll win. We're really, really excited. So today my guest is Nahshon Cook. Did I say that right? Nahshon?
Yes, Nashon, yeah.
Great, okay. And Emily Kitching is responsible for me asking him to be on my webinar because she contacted me and said, this guy's amazing and you just need to talk to him.
Oh, why?
So I reached out and he was kind enough to
heartened.
respond, and here we are. So welcome, Nashon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. So I don't really know much about you. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about you and you know, what your background is with horses?
Yeah, well, I'm still learning a lot about myself, so I'll preface it with that. But I'm trained as a classical dressage rider, and I have schooled one horse up through the first of the airs above the ground. My horse Nova, thoroughbred, great thoroughbred. A lot of my work now focuses on rehab work with horses, and I have I've trained and taught all over the world, and yeah, and I have students here. I have a small line of 8 horses, 4 of which are mine.
Always.
And so yeah, and I have my arena, and we just go down and experiment with stuff.
Okay, so we have to back up a little because you glossed over a lot of stuff here. So
yeah.
when did you first get involved with horses?
I started riding when I was 13, and it was in a equine, or it was in an after school diversion program at the urban farm at Stapleton here in Colorado. And so consequently, motivation wise, like they had like 30 acres and it was right across the street from the Denver County Jail. So that's how I got started. And well, it was started by 2 ladies, Donna Garnett and Khadijah Haynes, and they're not doing it anymore. But while I was there, I was under the tutelage of a Grand Prix dressage rider from the States. Her name is Cynthia Spalding. She's in Branson, Missouri now. My maestra. I think that she's the most wonderful human being in the horse world for me. And then Jean-Francois Fabier, who presented Horses in Hand. He was a member of the Cadre Noir in France. And so those were the 2 folks that I worked with.
So they came to that, what was the name of it again?
The urban farm, yeah, they came there.
Wow. So you're from Colorado originally?
I am born and raised in Colorado, yeah.
Awesome. And so you're 13 and you go to this place and you look across the street and go, jail horses, and then you decide horses, or?
Well, I didn't, you know, I think that every so often, it just happened to be, it just happened to be that that's where it was. But I was that little kid who, like, because I'm from inner city Denver, you know, and so I was that little kid, like, when we would drive around town, you know, I would just like ask my mom or dad to stop on the side of the road when I saw horses in the field, because they've just been there for me.
So basically horses were in your blood from the time you were born.
Yeah, I kind of feel it feels like I came in looking for a way to be with them. Yeah.
That is so cool. Um, I love finding out the background of my guests, and because we didn't just drop into where we are now doing what we're doing, there's this story. And, I think it's so inspirational for people to hear the stories, and that as an inner city kid in Denver, it's not like there were horses all around you, even though, Colorado is a very horse state. Um,
Right.
and so that is so amazing that these people had this opportunity available to kids in the inner city. And there are other programs like that, but we need more of them.
Yeah, we do. And I think and I think that it needs to be available to just kids in general, you
Yeah,
know? So it's a, I mean, it's there's, there are access issues and but I think also that and I mean, and the fact that, I am Black, but there are a lot of there's a huge Black community of horse people in the southern United States that I didn't know about. So, I just think that like socioeconomic wise, there, if possible, there needs to just be access for just kids who don't have it, you
right.
know? Yeah.
Well, I was, this is going back a bit, but in the Philadelphia area, there's a polo team. And these kids from the inner city get to learn how to play polo. And it's such a
Yeah.
fabulous program. And, in this country, what I've watched is that we marginalize horses when we build new housing developments, and we marginalize the horses, and we keep pushing them out and pushing them out so that kids don't have access. Whereas in Europe, because it's such small countries, there's so
Right.
much access because the barn is part of the neighborhood. It's right there.
Right.
Um, and so, for me, I started riding at a local riding school that was available to me in my hometown, which doesn't exist anymore. It's because it's become, developed. So I think I totally agree with you how important it is that kids have access because, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that and horses for me are like the arts, like, like you don't expose children to learn how to paint to expect everybody to be artists, but it's a critical development in a human brain to understand abstract theory, to begin to empathize, to begin to, you know, develop an interior life. I mean, there's all of these things, and going back to the history of teaching horsemanship as an art, like in the beginning it was a subject matter, right? It was to
Yeah.
help develop human beings, right? um and so, I think that I just, and I don't quite know where I fit in that right now. um because a lot of my work is not necessarily focused on teaching, having as many people to teach to ride as I possibly can, as it is really understanding the biomechanical structure of the movement and the emotional connection between that. And so it's not like basic stuff. I really like the meat of dysfunctional movement, and trying to figure out like how to stabilize stuff. So, I think like right now I was in conversation with the lady Patricia Jackson, who um runs the Oakland Youth Equestrians, and I was just talking to her, and she was saying, well, you just showing kids that, a life in this world is possible for you is a really, really important thing, and
I was
so
going to say, maybe you'll wind up being one of those teachers that goes to those schools the way someone came for your school. But
well, and so I'm thinking, like, if I set up clinics around, then I can find an organization, and on that, while I'm there, hopefully go and be able to help. That's kind of where how things are leaning post COVID.
yeah, I know. Yeah, we're all waiting for that post-COVID time. Okay, so you're at this facility and you're starting to work with horses, and you have these incredible mentors that come there. And so how, like, were you just starting to learn to ride, or did you start training there? How long were you there?
So I started when I was 13, and they hired me to teach when I was 16. And then you're done with the program as a participant when you're 18, when you're done with high school. And so I was there, and then I taught a little bit after I was in high school and some in college, and then I took a hiatus um, in college and started my master's work, my postgraduate work, my graduate rather, and then was on track for postgraduate and didn't like it, and so then I moved to Asia.
Oh,
And
wait a second. Okay, we got to unpack this here. Okay, so where did you go for your undergrad,
I went to Metro State College,
and what did you study?
human services with a focus on mental health counseling and at-risk queer youth.
Wow. And do you feel like you use that with the horses?
Yeah, I think a part of being human is just having the patience to listen, and a lot of people have to learn how to do that. um and I'm realizing with people and in horses, tension comes from a point of reference of what we think should be, right? And relaxation comes when we realize what is. And like when we're able to stay with what is, we're present, and when we're present, then we find that connection. And that connection happens because communication opens up when we feel like we don't have the need to control something. And it's the same for me with horses and people.
Wow. So were your parents horsey at all, or did they support you in your desire to be with horses?
Oh yeah, they're not horse people. My mom is quickly turning into a horse woman. She does she, she
My mom
doesn't
never
ride.
did.
Yeah, and so my dad is who got me started, who found the organization, who found the program for me. And so he did that and supported me through that. And I don't think that and I think from the time I was maybe 13 to the time I was maybe 30, that my mom may have watched me ride 5 times. And then she bought me my farm here.
Oh,
She
wow.
called me up, one night, and she goes, "Let's do it." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And she's like, "Nope." And so we all live out here together, and she manages all the administrative stuff, and my brother, he oversees the care of the horses that I have. And yeah, so it's just turned into a family thing, and my mom retired so she could help me with this.
So you drew them all into your passion.
I don't know if I drew them in. I think though that they trusted what I was able to do enough to deem it worthy of their attention, like they're giving it to me.
That is so cool. I have to say that is so cool. My parents were not horsey, and my mom, after my first accident when I was 15, was constantly terrified that I was going to get hurt again, which I did. um, so they never got very involved with the horses with me. So I think that's awesome. Okay, so now let's go back. So you were going to get your graduate degree, and then you decide to quit your graduate degree. You're going to get a doctorate.
Yeah, I was going for my, yeah, in from there was a joint program with the Iliff School of Theology and University of Denver. And I didn't like it. And so I had gotten a scholarship, and I gave that scholarship back, and then I went and traveled. Yeah.
And you wound up in Asia,
Yeah.
where there are horses, but it's not like here.
No, so it is there, in Thailand, there's probably, where I was, there's probably 1,000 to 1,500 people, mostly families, really landed families, who participate in the equestrian uh sports there.
And so were you involved with the horses when you were in Thailand?
Oh yeah, I coached and I
Oh, okay.
trained and I competed.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was there. I was there for 2 years, and I was gone for a total of 4 years. And then I came back home and met my horse Nova, who taught me how to start healing horses.
So tell us about Nova.
He's magic. Um, I feel like Nova. Um, I really feel like Nova is a gift to me, because my whole world, and my understanding, uh, of riding as a modality of training horses and working with horses as a modality of healing for them, came from him. He had kissing spine in his lumbar spine and a slipping stifle, and he taught me how to fix it. And that's where my rehab work and started.
So how did you meet him?
I got a call when I moved back in from China. um I got a call when I moved back home from China, that there was this horse, and he'd been, geez, by then he was 9 or 10. He's grade, so nobody, I don't know how old he is for sure. But I got a call, and because he'd been through like 7 or 8 different trainers by the time he was 8, and he was started at probably 3 or 4. And there was one of the people who was talking to about him, and she says, "I hate this horse because he doesn't respect the rules." And I thought, well, did you explain the rules to him in a way that he could understand? Um, you know, and so, he had bucked, and he had learned that bucking people was fun, and he was, and they just didn't want him anymore. And so I started working with him, and he was just so athletic, and I said, if I can get this horse under control, I can get him to the Grand Prix. Um, and if I can get him with me, and it happened. And it's been 7 years, and when I got him, I didn't even have a car. And my work with him has made it now to where I've been able to get my own farm.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah, I mean, I really think that, like, he's just a gift from heaven, really.
and so they gave him to you, I assume,
Yeah, yeah.
and
All
then
of my
you had
horses all of my horses have been gifted to me.
to there's no such thing as a free horse, right? So,
Well, the thing is that they teach me everything that I teach, and so I like I have my 3 horses. They all had really major um physiological issues. So, like, my big mare, did you see me ride that mare did you see the Eclectic Horseman, the Gazette video of me riding my mare?
I have not actually. I have to admit I have not watched it.
Oh, well, no, there's no pressure, and I wasn't meaning to pull you out. But that mare, so please forgive me, that wasn't my intention.
That's okay.
Um, but that mare I got her because she had a major spine or pelvic fracture.
Wow.
And so I wanted to explore the work around the SI joint coming out of the lumbosacral junction and the pelvis. Um, um, and so, she's been a really wonderful lesson in engaging the rectus abdominis muscles to shape the back and pelvis in such a way to where correct mobility is possible. And then I have my other young horse, who I got because he had really horrible supraspinous ligament damage. um because the people who had him, they jumped him. They were jumping him like 5 feet as a 3-year-old.
Mm.
And so, on top of that, I mean, and Emily has seen him where he has just been an absolute nut. and um and and I respect it. I mean, in the time that she saw him, we were shooting something for Kissing Spine, and she wanted to watch, and we were doing some work in hand, and he was just so um not agreeable to it. Um and what happened was that she was there, and when you have somebody who knows how to see horses and who has seen a lot of people work with horses, there's that kind of gaze that you kind of impose on them imposing on you, and sometimes you feel like you just have to like try and work through it and fix it up. But I was just like, like, this horse has major emotional trauma, and so we backed up and he calmed down, and it was a really beautiful recognition for me from that she gave, when she was like, so how did you get back to that point? How did you get that horse calm? And it's like, well, if I have a student tell me once, she says, if it feels forced, it's not fair.
That's a really good statement. Say it again.
If the work feels forced, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And
You know,
so
I recently had Heidi Blackman on for yoga, and she says, if it feels like it too much, it is too much. And this sounds like
yeah.
the same thought.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to that original statement, how tension is born out of tension is born out of what we think should be, and relaxation is born out of the realization of what is. And like when we stay with relaxation, we find presence, and that's where the connection happens. And it's always there if we realize when we are moving into tension.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so hard for some people to recognize because so much of their life is tension. And right now with COVID, I think a lot of people are living in tension just because we're forced into situations that we don't have control of. We either can't go to work, or the kids can't go to school, or now there's a snowstorm.
Yeah, and for me, all my pipes in my barn busted. But I was just like, but I think that the more you practice staying calm, the more you understand that though we can't control the situations, we can make them a little bit easier by not reacting to them.
So this sounds like meditation.
Well, it's awareness born out of meditation for sure. Yeah, but not necessarily meditation, necessarily meditation being like something that you like sit on your mat, or you like have to go and join a dojo or a monastery or something. It's just understanding that our breath is the best teacher that we have.
I think
And
you might be covering up your mic a little bit.
how's that?
That's better. Yeah, because
Okay, so I'm sorry, it's just understanding that, like, our breath is the best teacher that we have. And like, if we trust it, it'll get us from one place to the next. And and then we realize that, that's where we are, and the only thing we can do with where we are is what there is to be done.
How did you get so wise at such a young age?
Uh, I, I don't know. I don't know. I think I trust life, and I trust that, um even if situations are hard, like, if I stay open to the lesson, I find a piece of myself that I didn't understand, and it becomes useful if I can share it.
We often wonder about the generations coming up because they have all this technology available and so instant, and yet you are so thoughtful and so in tune. It gives me hope because sometimes you wonder, you see all the great masters and they're passing, and they're aging out, and we need to know that there are people coming along in the horse world that get it, that understand, and it's so refreshing to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I just think that, I think that I think that people, you know, you study the lives of the masters. I was talking to Leslie Desmond the other night, and she was telling me the story about Bill Dorrance, and she told me how so many people work off of pressure and release, where he worked off of feel or intention and release. And you realize the amount of trust you think. I thought about that, and as she was telling me that story over the phone, I just began to weep, because there's the amount of just trust that he worked out of in himself, which made himself so totally available to horses. Um, and I want to get there. She said, "You are so lucky, young man." She goes, "You've come such a long way, and you are so lucky that you're young enough that you have such a long way to go." And I thought, like, if that wasn't the biggest blessing that someone could give me, like, you're on the right road, keep going, there's more, stay helpful. you know and you know, I mean, and the thing is that there's all of this. You know, and there's all of this attention on my work lately, and with that attention, there's the invitation to change what you're doing for the sake of more attention. And I have just decided that, like, I've gotten invitations to be places and meet people, and I just, you know, I don't want to get caught up in the I just want to do my work.
Yeah.
I just want to do my work.
And it's true.
Are you there?
True that, oh yeah, we're totally here. You're still there?
Okay.
Okay. But it's
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
true. And, you know, exposure does lead to different opportunities, but the opportunities aren't always necessarily the path.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for it all. You know, I'm really grateful for it all. I think, but my focus and my devotion is to these horses who right now, whose suffering is so big that they don't really know a way out.
Yeah. So let's go back to that for a minute. You clearly know anatomy. Was that something that you've studied on your own, or
Oh yeah, I'm such an anatomy nut. Right now, I'm reading a book, The Functional Anatomy of the Pelvis and the SI Joint. Uh, so, I think there's a poetry to everything. And I think that understanding how the body moves is 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 akin to understanding the rhythm and the rhyme scheme of a good poem, right? A beautiful, a well-written horse is a beautiful poem, and a beautiful poem outside of just the artistic license that someone has when they are adept in the art of writing the poem and can manipulate and sculpt technique. Like, that's, it comes from understanding the energy behind the intention, right? And
yeah,
like, and when you understand the energy behind the intention, then psychological issues and emotional issues come up, because you realize most of the time we have we have biomechanical issues going on.
right. Right. But
You
and that's
know?
the thing, is that you're not just, I think it's, I just want to make clear that you're not just coming from this presence understanding, but also the understanding of the function and the biomechanics, because without the art and the science, you only have half of it. Right. So the science
Yeah,
of
and
understanding function and gravity and how the body works, in addition to the presence.
yeah, and like for me, that's, that understanding of all of that, the understanding of the emotional part and the spiritual part and the biomechanical part, all of those, and the artistic part, all of it is based in science. There's a science to the art. There's a science to the psychology. There's a science to the biomechanics. There are rules, and there are laws, and and you know, and it's really easy to get stuck in that. And the thing that keeps me grounded in understanding that it's not an either or is, one, not feeling like I have to be right. You know, I don't, you know, it's just what is. And you know, by not having to be right, you don't depend on judgment of people and their work, because you realize that, you know, broken horses' bodies are sometimes the best that the person who broke them could do.
Yeah.
You know, and you learn a lot about the people who did this in fixing these horses. If you can, you learn where their fears lay. You learn where their understanding stopped, because that's where the horse gets defensive, and that's where punishment and force started to be used. And then so you are able to then begin to have this compassion for the people thinking that they had to be a certain way to get a certain result, and when it didn't work, they let it go. And looking at it from that point of view is just super helpful, because, you know, you realize that a lot of people's mistakes with horses aren't intentional.
I've called it benign abuse. People don't go out intentionally to abuse their horses. They either don't have the knowledge, and abuse begins where you run out of choices. If you don't have
That's right. That's right. And understanding that, like, at the heart of this product is a heart, is a heart that did the best that they could, and it wasn't good enough. And recognizing that it wasn't good enough is reason to grow. And
not
it's reason for me as a teacher to continue to study, and to continue to to help guide people out of those situations as they allow me to. You know, because when you're able to manipulate energy and intention, you can make miracles happen. You know, I mean, you can. And like there's no, I mean, and in the process and the practice of that, like, and that's where the art comes in. It comes in from the awareness of the use and the meaning of all of the tools and techniques that you've studied, the science of it, and knowing when and how much and what for, and then offering it. You know, um and so, you know, I think that, you know, I was talking to one of my students the other day how I'm kind of scared to not have a horse that's not broken, um because I've learned how to sit with the suffering and not be drowned by it. You know, I've learned how to bring them out, but I often wonder what it would be. You know, I think, and I think that this is just where I'm immature as a trainer right now. You know, because the broken ones teach me how the body works. You know.
I think what I'm hearing you say, and I think of it from my own perspective. I had a horse roll over me and punch my femur through my hip socket and break the hip socket out in the back in 2 pieces, and then bruise 2 inches of the sciatic nerve, and then kick me between the legs when he got up in 1984. And
Wow.
it was that I was lucky I didn't sever the sciatic nerve, otherwise I wouldn't have a left leg. But my struggle in rehabbing my own body is why I am a good riding instructor.
Yeah. I understand.
Yep. And so it's, you know, it's not just my goal in teaching riding is to prevent people from having the kind of accident I had. But, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, I broke my neck yesterday, I'm like, yeah, you know, because I know I can help. But if somebody comes to me and says they're pregnant, I'm like, I don't have a clue.
Right.
Right. Because I've never had children.
There's a lot of wisdom in the pain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wisdom in the pain when we have the courage not to try and run from it and to not to try and feel it. There's a lot of I mean, and you begin to realize that, you know, that need for control and tension is usually birthed out of our addiction to our own selves. You know, and like when we can when we can find the breath and allow it to help us to relax, then we do begin to see others, and we begin to see ourselves and others in their joy and in their pain and in their ignorance and understanding. And we begin to work out of that space of um, co-creation. Well, I began to work out that space with horses in, out of, of co-creation in life and art. And I go, hey, what about this? And like when Emily came and saw me, we talk. I mean, geez, she came and watched me teach, and then we talked for like 2 hours, and then she watched me ride my mare. And I was explaining to her how like I'm able to get I'm able to get the beginnings of pee off by cracking my fingers and change that to an extension by just closing my fingers and nothing else. And so like there's just because I don't necessarily feel like I have to lay claim to a tradition or a way of schooling. I'm open to what my horses hear me saying, and then I find new ways of working and teaching them. You know, it's really magic. I feel guilty sometimes that I have such a beautiful life.
Why should you feel guilty?
Because I wish everybody could have it.
Yeah.
I want to share this. I want to share it with the whole world. Everybody deserves to feel this wonderful every day. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy. And like I said, I told you the pipes busted because of the cold. So I was up every 3 hours because all of my waterers, I had to shut the water off to the barn. But, so for the past 2 nights, I've been up for every 3 hours watering my horses. But, but even that, it lets, the world is big, but the love is bigger. And being able to live in that love is just a magnificent, magnificent thing. It just feels it's so hard, but it feels so good. And I've done almost everything else work wise that I've wanted to, and this is the only thing in my own space where I don't want to do anything else.
When I listen to you, what I hear is that you are totally congruent with your life force. In other words, so many people are at odds with what they do for work and what they do outside. They're not in alignment with their true self. And it sounds to me like you're totally in alignment with who you are, and what you do. And that's where that gratitude comes from.
Yeah, and it comes from, it's gratitude for everything. It's gratitude for the things that I hated doing. When I was a teacher in school, it was gratitude for hating that job because because it let me know what I didn't want to do.
Right.
It let me know when it's gratitude for having the ability to have my own space where I can feed my horses and I can make the changes to their schedule, and it's gratitude for it all. But like it's been a commitment that I have had to my craft and my art in my life with horses since I was 13. Like I have books everywhere. I have books everywhere.
So what are you reading right now?
I just got a hold of 2 Oliveira books that were out of print. And so I got the Classical Principles of the Art of Training Horses, volume 2, and I was able to buy that from a seller in Australia and then I got his from old masters to from old master trainers to young trainers. A book that I am always really to keep close is Posture and Performance by Jillian Higgins. And then this one, I love the Biomechanical Riding by Nancy Nicholson. And it was it's really um it's just it's I just like how things work. I like figuring out how things work. And then I'm reading a collection. I'm rereading the collection of poems by Mary Oliver. Her second complete, her second new and selected poems. And then I am reading um, A Source of Self-Regard, the collected essays of Toni Morrison.
And you read them all at the same, you have them all at the same time.
Yeah, and then I just and then I have, I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name.
You're covering up the sound again.
Okay, and then I'm reading a book, the Piaf and Passage, The Work in Hand, and The Functional Anatomy of the Pelvis and the SI joint. So, you know, my brain, that's why I can't sit still, you know, because I'm just processing all of this information. And then I get to go down and see what my horses think about it, and they go, well, this is what I hear you saying. Is this what you're meaning to say? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, then neither do we. You know, I mean, and so I mean, and that's, you know, my arena is my laboratory. Um, and my horses are my professors, and they're letting me know what they hear me saying, and they tell me good job or try again, you know.
And yeah, it's awesome. I'm just thinking, I have a equine library of about 400 books. I don't think I'd ever see you again if you ever went there.
Probably not. Probably not, but you know, I mean, I think I'm just really thankful that I can help. I think that that's what it means to be a human being. I think to be a human being means to help. And I'm
So we we titled this webinar your golden rule. And so talk about your golden rule, because I didn't actually expand on that.
the follow the horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, the follow the horses and find heaven in every step. Yeah. I just think that it's a really wonderful way to walk through life. I had a friend who told me that when I was 19. And I didn't realize what it would mean. But he and his wife had me over for supper, and we were talking, and we had met through a mutual friend who was actually a AmeriCorps volunteer at the farm where I learned how to ride. And he goes, you know, follow the horse and find heaven in every step. He said, this is your path in life. And he was right, you know, and I'm so thankful that he was. And there are things like that happen where you don't always know what they mean when you receive it, but you trust it enough to keep walking. Um, and then you realize that you've been on your feet walking your road the whole time. And I'm really grateful. Um, that in this arena of work, where I'm not advertising, I don't advertise at all, really. I'm not promising good show results or test scores. I'm just like, you know what, like, I'll take the broken ones nobody else wants, because there's a story there, and we are our stories. And if they feel safe enough to tell me those stories, then maybe we can change the second part of the story, and it can be better for them. And what a beautiful thing to help, because you realize that in the process of allowing the horses to let you feel safe enough to hold their pain, that their humans' hearts change in the process. And you're able to then help heal people too.
Mm.
And that is a really that's a beautiful mercy, you know. And I think that the world is the way that it is because so many people just haven't been taught how to be kind to themselves.
Mm.
And so that's, you know, that's how they then treat other people. And then, you know, I mean, and because we can't give what we don't have,
Right.
right? And so when you just have the space to sit and think and explore, and you realize that, like, you know, everybody's struggling in their own way. And sometimes the struggle is not to stop struggling. Sometimes the struggle is to be able to help somebody struggle more effectively. Um, and you know, I think that a lifetime is enough time to do that.
That's awesome. So Nahshon, if we have a lot of listeners, and if there was one thing that you could suggest to them that they could go and do with their horses to help them start on this process that you're talking about, what would that be?
I think it would be to just spend time with them. A lot of people don't spend time with their horses. A lot of people, a lot of people show up, brush their horses, put their saddle on. There's always, you know, it would be changing the idea of horses as a means to an end, right? And beginning to explore more the concept, you know, Kant's categorical imperative, right? Of the horse as the end in and of itself. Like, what would it be to just brush your horse and tell him that you love him and take him for a walk and put him away, and they not have to be lame for you to do that? You know, it's kind of like showing up to a job and you're really high performing a team member of that job, and it is and people are expecting you to do that 100% of the time, but you realize that you can only give that much of yourself when you enjoy doing the work. I think horses are like that, you know. I mean, and I think that that's why like your 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 blocks and your, you know, and like pedestal work, and you know, allowing horses ways to be with us that enriches them too. And in the process of enriching them, we are able to observe them and learn how the most beautiful thing I love to do every morning is to turn my geldings out early in the morning, and I just watch them move. I watch them play with each other, and you begin to see, and Boudon said that, the great early 20th century French cavalryman, he goes, the greatest thing any rider can do is observe their horses. By observing by observing horses and working on perfecting yourself, you create something beautiful. And being able to watch them in the field, you begin to see what movements make their bodies feel good. You begin to see where and how they prefer. I mean, and that's the thing, is that these horses that come in with injuries, they're usually only injured when they're with people. When they're out playing with their friends, they're fine, which lets me know it's a psychological construct. And so if I can treat them like they treat each other, and we just enjoy our time together, and from that time together, beautiful work blooms, that 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 is what I would say. Observe them, spend time with them, be their friend. Be their friend. Right? And understanding, like, what makes you feel safe with a friend? Being listened to, being considered, being invited, right? Being able to emotionally just let your guard down and have a bad day and not be judged or judged for it. Horses are people, just with different brains. You
Well,
know?
and what I hear from you, and this is something that I've always thought, is that we have to offer respect to be respected. We have to.
Well, I don't think it's even, I don't think it's even about respect. I think it's about consideration. I think it's about love. I mean, we have to offer what we want.
Right. Right.
You know, I mean, and if we're not getting back what we want from our horses, that's because that's what we're offering them. And so that's a place of um self-reflection that is super, super useful. And you know, and you know what that usually comes back to is, you know, these stuck points, these limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. You know, when the answer 9 times out of 10 is learning how to ask the question in a way that they understand. It's not even changing the question. It's learning how to ask it differently. You know? I mean, and so and 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 there's so much that comes with our relationships with our horses, that when they don't work, it's you know, I mean, and those things, when we aren't able to get what we want because we're not asking in the way that they understand, then we begin to judge ourselves, and us judging ourselves in that way lets us know where we still need to heal. And so this can all be a really wonderful process of of going towards health and wholeness, and not necessarily joy or happiness, because I think happiness is a momentary state, but joy is a state of being. And being able to rest in that state of joy even when it's tough, and saying, okay, things aren't going my way, how about I step back a little bit and just see what there is to be seen. And where in that space that is to be seen do I see myself stuck? And that's usually where the communication flop is with the horses, almost always.
Yeah, it's so delightful to listen to you.
Well, I'm glad that you want to listen.
And this is the part I love, your smile and your laughter, because you're a very deep thinker, clearly, but you're it's the laughter and the joy, as you said, that is so because we can get so sort of intense with it, but you have to lighten it up.
Yeah, we take ourselves seriously. I mean, and I think that that's the thing, that to be effective and to be impactful doesn't mean to be boring and brooding, and that's the thing that you hear about so many of the masters, is that they didn't necessarily like people.
Right.
right? They didn't communicate well with people, but that's because people are hard. You know, people are very difficult, and it's hard to feel safe with people. But you know, the thing is that I look at it, I have a hard time with people too, but helping people is the only way that I'm going to be able to help more horses. And I figure that, you know, I'm worth my horse's consideration, and so people are worth mine. They're teaching me how to be human and not to be some judgmental little ninny, you know?
Yeah. And you know, it took me a lot longer to get to that idea than it took you. But the idea that, you know, when I started out, it was I just only wanted to work with horses, and then I had my accident and I had to figure out my own body, and then I had to figure out how to help others. And then I finally realized if I didn't help the person, I never helped the horse.
That's exactly right. And the thing is that the thing is that, you know, we don't get to those realizations unless we are confronted with a pain that we cannot run from.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I
Yeah.
mean, and there again, there's the wisdom of it, right? Like, what happened when perfect isn't an option anymore? Then we finally are alive.
Yeah.
We are finally alive because there's possibility for progress. And the possibility for progress lay in making a choice to see ourselves as possible, to make that progress. And when we do that, that's when we become intelligent, because we must understand each step, but more importantly, we must understand the step between each step. And that is where the magic is that each step between each step. You know, it's not asking, it's not talking to the horse or the student to get something out of them, except understanding what you're asking them to do. That's it. And then they offer. You know, I mean, I was playing with this idea of the pillar rein, or the pillars with piaffe, like they do in the old schools. And I, you know, because in handwork, I'm a short man. I'm a relatively short man. I'm 5'7", and all of my horses are at least 16'3". And I think in handwork is super, super helpful. But you know, I don't want to build pillar reins because I think they're kind of prehistoric. I think they kind of outused their usefulness, kind of like race as an excuse, like it's outlived its usefulness, right? And so me and my horse Remy, we were playing with this idea of 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 me using my body as the rein, and using Warwick Schiller's idea of when they feel tension in the rein, they stop. And so, like, he has the wall and I have his cavesson with the rope on it, and when he comes up to the hand and I click, he just started piaffing. You know, I mean, and so it's that and it's understanding that we have these classical principles and we have these classical practices, and the thing is that that's the best that they had with the information that they had, and that the movements are possible, but there's a better way now to do that. And I wouldn't have been able to play with this idea of allowing myself to be an energetic pillar for my horse if I didn't have my horse's pain to work through. You know what I'm saying? And so within that space, there's the innovation, there is the art, and it comes from understanding the technique and understanding that the tradition is only as valuable as we can build out of it, not necessarily reproduce it. I don't want to have to tie my horse's heads down to get them to hold a collected position. I don't want to do that, and I don't want to feel like I have the peer pressure from dead men that tradition is to do that, right? There's a better way when we understand how the mechanics of the body work, and understanding too now the intelligence that horses have of their bodies. And if we take that invitation into their bodies and let it teach us, then we're able to work out of a more beautiful and holistic space.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is that it's important to know what was done, but then look at how we can innovate and how we can.
Yeah, it's important to innovate out of innovation, right?
Yep.
I mean, and I think that that's the important thing, is that I really respect the tradition so much as it's health giving and useful. If it takes away from the dignity of the horse, I don't care who wrote about it or who practiced it, it doesn't fit. But it's important for me to know what is there so I don't repeat that same mistake.
Right.
You know? I mean, and so it's not judgment, it's just saying, you know, a better way is possible. And I don't know what that is yet, but there's the possibility of progress. You know?
Well, Nashon, we've come to the end of our hour, and
We have. And I really appreciate you wanting to talk with me.
well, it's a pleasure listening to you, because there's so many things in what you say that I've either known, practiced, thought about, experienced, and how, you know, for me it's been teaching riding, but the pain that
Yeah.
led me to become who I am, to do what I do. And I always say, you know, if that was 15 seconds when that horse flipped on me, and it changed my life. And Surefoot is the second 15 seconds that changed my life. But we need to, you know, like, I'm always grateful for that accident, because without that accident, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And when you are able to find gratitude in the pain, then you begin to find the wisdom of the pain's usefulness,
Yeah.
which is how healing is possible.
Yeah.
And that's what all of us need.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we all need. That is what we all need. And for me, that is what allows us all to be each other's gifts of grace. And we deserve that.
Yeah.
You know? So I have thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. And I am very heartened and honored that you thought it worthwhile to talk with me. And the invitation is open to keep a dialogue continuing.
Awesome. I look forward to that.
All right.
I might be sending you a book or two. You gotta send me your address.
Yeah, I will most certainly. I'll send you an email. But I have to run. There's a young trainer who's coming to watch the pedestal work today. So I got to get down and make sure I'm prepared for him.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to the time when I can actually come out and meet you.
Oh my God.
Travel
We're
again.
gonna have to do lunch.
Yeah. Emily with us. She won't let me go without her, I'm sure. Emily.
Oh no. Well, it'll be a triptych. It'll be fantastic. All right. See you later.
Well, thanks so much, and take care. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Just remember, this and all the other webinars are on the Surefoot Equine YouTube channel. And stay tuned for our next webinar. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.